currently the president of Friends of the Library, and I want to welcome you all here today. I want to give you a little history about how this event all came about. A couple months ago, a group of Friends of the Library got together and said, you know, there's nobody putting together anything for the voters to be able to hear the voice of those running for the city council. So we decided to put together an event so that you could actually see who the candidates were and what they stood for. We did the one for the three that were running for position 4. We did that beautiful outside, which was a great thing to be able to do. And when it was over, we had a number of people come to us and say, can you do more? Can you do a non-threatening where people can come in and just ask questions? So we put out back in July to all of the candidates that we wanted to do more forums. And we set dates, and of course me, I'm retired, I set the dates for Thursday afternoons. Over half of the candidates came back to us and said, well, I work. So we went back, looked at the schedule here at the library, which if you're trying to schedule a meeting in this meeting room at the library, you better get in here months in advance. The only days that were available were Saturdays. So we sent the message back out to all the candidates that we wanted to do this. We were going to do it on 4 Saturdays. And got messages back, okay, let's do it. And then last weekend we received notice from 2 of the candidates that they would not come today. Saturday we received notice from 2 of the candidates that they were declining the opportunity to come and speak to the voters' motion shores at the library. We were kind of disturbed about that, but as one of the people from our committee said, when a nominee is elected for an Academy Award, and they don't show up, the Academy Awards don't. So we decided to move forward and go ahead and have the forum because people needed to have that opportunity to ask questions. So we have a timer. We have a couple of people to watch the audience for questions to make sure I don't miss anybody, because last time we had some people in my work revision that I missed and did not get them for questions. But we wanted to open today with candidate Bob Peterson and give him about 10 minutes. Kathy's going to time him to make sure that he doesn't go over 10 minutes time limit. Friends of the Library is not endorsing any candidates. This is our year of education. And if you come to an FOL meeting, you will find that every meeting we have a guest speaker. We have had pause. We've got the debate coming next month. We have had Jen's genealogy coming. We've had the fire department coming. You know, that our community. And what better way to do it than to get to know our candidates before we vote? So, for the next 10 minutes, let's hear the Bob Peterson story.
So, thank you for coming today, all of you. I look forward to answer the questions and I'll give you my background, education background first, and then my professional background and some of the things I come from the city, right? So we moved here from Kirkland in 2011. After graduating from high school in years ago, I went into the Navy, spent 3 years there in special services and worked for Virginia. And I immediately attended college after graduating from the Navy. Went to college in Emporia and Emporia campus undergraduate, and had a degree in math science degree in psychology and education. And I went to Emporia State University also, and received a master's and a specialist degree in psychology. That was in 1975. And then in 1995, I got a secondary school administration degree at Central Washington University. Got 60 in psychology and economy, about secondary school principal. I did do that. My work record was a school psychologist in Kansas City, Kansas from 1975 to 1985. School psychologist in Washington School District from 1985 to 2013, which is Kirkland and Bedford. then in school psychology, I retired here. And then I walked out of retirement. I hate to be times now. Came back and worked at Northeast School District, and I still do kind of. I retired a year before last, and they brought me back with 10 weeks in school year last year because someone hadn't done that. And then they brought me back this year. That two of them are in litigation, the other one is just a young child that had never been a student, but we're trying to go. So that's kind of my background. Uh, my volunteer background is that I sat in this room when I was much smaller. After the first library in 2014.
11.
Oh, a long time ago. And was here to Citizens for Balanced Growth. We came to we were trying to get involved in the community. And there were quite a few people in here, and our levy failed, and the lady who sort of ran the thing fired the committee. And I didn't know what that meant, but then she pointed at a couple of people in this room. Senior thinking, Bob Kruger, myself, and Charlie Bear, who's not with us, and said, you guys are going to run the next 11. And then they were going to run it back in like November. And so we said, hey, great, that's a good idea. So we got together, started getting together at Charlie and Karen's house and tried to figure out how do we do this. Otherwise, we're going to lose a lot. That's a lot of life. And so we learned how to do a pack, make a pack, and Jeannie actually figured that one out. That was serious. And the people who had been on the previous path that failed and interviewed them and asked them what lengths they went to get it passed. And then we brought in the EMS committee who had passed theirs. And we took the information from both sides of it and put together a plan and proceeded to win the next one. It took a lot of work. We went door to door. We had information from people. We had a rule that if you went to someone's house and they didn't answer, but they literally had to go back and talk to them. They talk to them again. And then if you still couldn't get in, you would call. We had a phone for them. So we won that. And then it came up again. 2 years later, I think it was. And this time we were ready, and we won by a pretty large margin. And so that's the year right after that I was elected to the council, and with the help of Lisa Grable, who's in this room, and several people on the council, we were able to bring the library back into the city budget, which has steadied and has kept the money coming in, so to speak, consistent money, and that's good because on a levy system, they couldn't anticipate exactly what the costs were going to be and that sort of thing. And I remember one of the toughest days that I've ever had as working in public service for the schools or for the city was when Bob Kruger and I had to sit down and tell her to cut her budget by 10%. And I thought her head was going to and we said, take the next day and just go home and cut about 10%. We'll come back and we'll look what areas really needed 10%. And we'll put back in the right places, which we did. But there were some services needed to be cut back, but we got through until we were able to get it into the library, our fifth library into the budget. And so that's kind of gotten started. And then I ran for the city council and won in 2016, I guess it was. And then ran again in 2020 and won. While on the council, let me see, what did we do? We created and administered the summer fun youth program that was for 2 years and got short because of COVID. I was a member of the interagency dental health group working with children in foster care places in Aberdeen, which was all doctors and psychiatrists and social workers working on kids that were in foster placement. What was going to happen to them after they aged out, or if they were looking for a family, where else to go? And so that was, that was a pretty interesting job. And that was that was pro bono. Um, and let's see, worked with the current mayor, and then Lisa, when we worked nuisance ordinances. Sat down at McDonald's for hours, worked on these things. And then worked on a team that rewrote council guidelines for meetings and ethics. And at the same time, the council created financial principles that outlined a path forward fiscally for us to ensure that we meet our financial obligations, pay down our debt, and put money into the reserve account. So lo and behold, here we are today. We were about $200,000 in reserves, and now we're about $2.5 million. And so we have been able to, our city has been able to pay down an unbelievable amount of debt, and we're getting things done and paying for things as we go. So I think those are all kind of good things financially. I'm very proud of the summer fun program that we created. That was a STEM program, and we had a lot of kids involved, and we had a lot of different experiences. We included Pacific Beach in it. Wrote a couple of grants. Lisa wrote a grant to Grace Harbor, and we got busing services, so the city didn't pay for that. And then we wrote a grant that we never used, and we got for $10,000. That was supposed to give us additional monies, but we just didn't go on because of COVID hit again, right? And the city did, we were able to get the city to allocate $13,000 to start this thing off. And we came in under budget, and we had paid people and volunteered people.
1 minute.
Okay, whoa. I guess I'm good one. Okay, all right. Probably a key thing that I know is going to come up today, so I'm just going to talk about it now, is that I had to resign in 2.5 years into my second term. And I'm not going to go into all the details of it because part of it is it impacts other people. My wife in particular and another person who is not in the room today, I don't think. Anyway, she had a medical incident on the 4th of July in 2022, I think it was. And because of that, I chose to step away from the council and chose to step away from working for the school district because I needed to be there. There were appointments everywhere, and I can't tell you all the places we went. Also at the same time, I responded to a email that happened to be on my work site, and it was to a citizen, and I blamed them for it because she was taking, my wife was taking, she was on the school board, and she was receiving hate emails 2 or 3 times a week that were not just hate, but pointed. And I'll never forget sitting on the 4th of July last year and having her open up this email and just dropping her head and saying, I said, what's wrong with another email? I said, just give me your phone. So I wrote out her resignation letter, and I said, read this, send it, or keep it, and whatever you're going to do. So she sent it, we went on a walk, and by the time I got back, she had had a medical emergency. And that's all I'm really going to say about it. I think there should be litigation, could be litigation down the road on it. So the other piece that was on that complaint was I had written a letter. I had been asked by the school district to write a letter to Patty Murray,
Can I have 30 seconds more?
30 seconds.
Okay, 35.
30.
Because that took 5 seconds to talk about, okay? I wrote a letter to Patty Murray at the request of the district to support the idea of having a school-based health center in our schools, which was not going to cost the city anything. It was going to come from a grant out of Patty Murray's office. If the grant flew, it would go down to the state, and then the state would allocate to the health departments at the various counties. Well, lo and behold, if you go up to the Ocean Shores or to North Beach High School right now, and you go into what the counseling area used to be, you'll see that it's all vacant right now because we have a doctor and a nurse, and we have the people to run the school-based health center there for all the kids and their parents to navigate and where to go. So I took heat from people about it, and the reason why I took heat is I asked the mayor, who was in favor of it, and I was in favor of it, and I asked a couple members on the council, but I guess I didn't do it in open court, so to speak. So it didn't, people got upset about it. A couple of people got upset about it, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, it's out in the hands of some other people. And so that's what happened, guys, and I'll show you a question about it later. So there we go. That's my 10 minutes.
Okay, we're going to open the floor to questions. I do want to ask that you just have a one-part question. I mean, we've got plenty of time, so you could ask a second question later, but I want to give everybody a chance to ask questions that wants to. We have no microphones here today, so if a microphone intimidates you, then we don't have microphones. And you don't have to state your name if you don't want to state your name. Just ask your question. So if you have a question, please raise your hand and we'll get to everybody we can. Right back there.
Connie Clifford. What are your top 3 priorities for student council?
I have some for that too.
For city council?
My top priority is to keep the city on the financial course that we're on. We've set the stage for it, we've paved it, you see some things happening now that would have never happened before, I don't believe. You've seen progress on the jetty. That's going to start pretty quick. You've seen progress on the, I call it on the fresh waterways, but it's actually the Oyahead ditch, because that's the headwaters. We've got that going now. That started. I'll never forget on Thanksgiving where I volunteered to run meals out of people with Mr. Mosbach, Phil, as we know him. And we had a break in the John, who is now our mayor, and Doug were sitting around waiting for the next run, and I said, come with me for a minute. And so Doug and I drove him over on the John, and we started going through all the side streets and showing him the ditch, and just how bad it was. And then it took him up to the Highway 115 there from the school going on down, and showing him how far it was backed up. It had been raining, how backed up it was into Oyahead. And so that's the water that comes down here. Then I took and showed him the headwaters back. We ran to the end of Oyahead and saw the swamp back there. I said, that's where this is coming from. And how are we going to ever get our fresh waterways cleaned up if we don't clean up this? And so that kind of started. Then, of course, then we had the big rains, and everybody knew about it. And so the city and the state and the county all got together and started. It's not finished yet, obviously, but it started. So we need to continue that. So those are 2 projects. And again, just my basic only reason why I'm back in, the only reason, is because I want to see the renaissance, I guess you'd call it, or the path we're on. We've got good people working for us in the city, and they're doing the right things. And I want to see it change.
Thank you.
All right.
Another question?
Scott. I'm sorry. No. I
That's
stepped
okay.
out. Scott.
Scott.
All right, well, I just wanted to ask because, I've had the honor and the pleasure of being city administrator of the city for almost 5 years now. I remember when I moved in June of 2019. It seems like the city has changed a lot, and I hear that from a lot of people. What are your thoughts on the changes and what
One more question.
are your thoughts on the changes?
Well, obviously, I think they're positive. Because I'll go back to, before I got on the council. And you got in 2019, so I've been doing it since 2012. And I had been going to that old group that is no longer, I think, in working order anymore, but Answers for All. Remember them? Okay, I went there to understand about civics. And there's a lot of old timers there. And they gave me the schooling on what this place was about and how it was built and that sort of thing, and how they complained a lot. But you got a real sense of what this place was about. And then I learned, and I stepped away from them, and I learned that they didn't do anything. Now, I mean, they would tell you that. We don't do anything, we just talk about things. That's great, that's fine. So I stepped away, and that's when I ran, and I used to go out and learn at the knees, so to speak, from Gordon Broadbent. We all remember him? Gordon at his place, and Bob Crummer would come in there. And Bob was a crusty old soul, and had been on the council before, and it was a little controversial. But you sure could learn a lot of history, and Gordon, had been politically correct, and he was really invested in the community. And they kept schooling me, basically. And finally, when the time came, Lillian and Gordon asked me that it's time to run. And so I did. And I ran, and won. And I think, and that's when John Martin, we came together. And our first things that we did, the financial guidelines, and the code of ethics, and the meeting rules and regulations. We worked at my kitchen table with John Lynn and hammered that stuff out. And those of you who know John Lynn was not a pushover by any means. And so he helped craft a lot of that, and a lot of his, picked up a lot of his ideas and where the city needed to be and where they needed to spend money, not spend money, and that sort of thing. So we're financially so much better off than we were, incredibly off. And so that's kind of why I'm still in. It's sort of like I went to undergraduate school there, and I got to graduate school in council, then took a hiatus, and now I'm trying to go back if I can look. Does that answer your question?
Do you have a second question?
No, I'll go to Alex.
Alex?
So I understand that you have been on the board of the library before.
I was.
And I would like to hear a little bit about your thoughts about the library.
Well, you heard earlier how I was involved with other people here involved in getting the library levies passed, right? And then before I got into, after the second levy that we got taken care of, the mayor asked me if I wanted to be on the library board. And I didn't understand what the library board was. I mean, I knew there were various boards, but I didn't understand that it was an independent board. It's away from the Fresh Waterways Board and that kind of stuff, where they can make their own decisions, which I learned was pretty cool. So as I think it happens in a lot of the committees in town, I was late to the first meeting, and during that meeting I was elected president. But it was okay, because I had, Bob was on the board, and had Gordon Broadbent, and had, what was the guy who, the old time keeps that?
I'm not sure I recall.
Oh, he used to read the Clive Cussler books.
Yeah, I know.
Well, that's just about everybody in town.
All right,
Can we
so-
sell them in here?
All right, so
Derek Pierce.
there you go, Derek Pierce. Derek Pierce was there. And two other people. But anyway, we had a good time in the meetings, and it wasn't all serious business. And one of the things that I used to do in those meetings was book talk. And book talk was what it was we were library board, right? So I figured somebody had to read a book. So I went to the person, I said, you have to read a book for next month, and come back and we'll talk about it. And so, most of the time, I think they made the books up. But by the time we were done, we had it written. So that was sort of fun. But we had business too, we took care of, and, we would have people come. That was typical library board. Obviously, I'm a big supporter of the library. What I didn't know, and this is an aside, I guess, but it's still related to it, so I'm kind of time thing.
Yeah, that's
Okay, all right. When I was a kid, I grew up in Rock Island, Illinois, and I grew up in projects. And I didn't know we were poor or anything like that. Back in those days, there were a bazillion kids in projects, and it was wonderful. We've been at games all day long, and had bikes and all sorts of stuff, And my best friend was a guy that I played baseball with. And so every Saturday, we would hike from where we lived to downtown to the big old Carnegie Library. And we would go down in the bottom of the library, where the kids' library was, and we would get books about the Air Force, the Army, and we'd sit there and read them, and we'd check them out and bring them home. And little did I know that we were being encouraged all the time by his mother, who was a school teacher. And so that was pretty interesting. And then also, they turned the library in college of Emporia, that turned out to be the Teachers Hall of Fame. And that was Carnegie Building too. So, they're important. I'm disappointed right now in our library situation in our schools. And the high school, they did rip the library 4 or 5 years ago now and created it into what they call Student Success Center now, where they work with kids individually or in small groups. But the books that nobody was reading anyway. They didn't have a plan to upgrade their library. That's one of the things that when we had to do our cutting of the expenses that year, Bob, was we had to cut some of the new books coming in. And you have to be fresh, obviously. You have to farm, I call it farming. And we've done a good job here. I still would look at the books and read. Although I think right now I hold fine. And I try to pay that up. Andy was on that one too. Yeah. So, does that answer your question?
Yes,
Okay, all right.
I've got a question over here, Bob.
Yes. Jan.
Jan.
There's been a lot of discussion on the RVs coming in and on camping rules and allowing 120 days stay, I believe, on the one lot. Do you have an opinion on that? Pros and cons?
I do have an opinion in the sense that I think I can kind of relate to that. I love that whole set. And we have 3 lucky lots in it. And so the RV guy moved and brought his RV in, and I thought, oh my God, here we go. We're going to have that campfire, so we're going to have all these things associated with it. But it wasn't one guy. And I'm sorry. But I do understand. And he was very careful about getting the permit that he had. And he knew about the 90 days, and he was really good about that. I don't mind 90 days at all. I do mind inconsiderate campers. And I think I haven't experienced that, but other people have, obviously. They have campfires going. And I think there's one person I know that has. Right next to camping lot, she's got 6 fence in the back of the trailer. And they put a generator to the fence in the back of the trailer. So which is, come on, you just can't do that thing. As far as 120 days though, okay? I would be glad to discuss that. I can see the merit in it in the sense that Memorial Day is later. Because I think during that time now you've got to move trailers at least once to get to that 90. So I kind of think that as long as code enforcement is taking care of their business, I can see myself leaning that. That's what the council wants, and all the citizens. Now, one of the things that since being around for so long, since before I got on the council to the time I left the council, I have listened to countless, public comments made by the, campers wanting and coming up with things of why they should be allowed to be there longer. And then by, citizens, why they shouldn't be there longer. So it's gonna have to be hammered out. And I know it's been hammered out since like day one. I think it first started with like 30 days of camping, then went to 60, then went to 90. I personally would like to see all of our properties that people are on build houses. I think it makes us for a stronger community. I also know that people will buy that are sold lots and are told that they can camp on. And I think that needs to be something that maybe our real estate people need to be forthcoming about what the rules are. So I think it's education on that part too. So as you can see, I'm flexible and, on that, and really, I feel very strongly both ways.
You mentioned things that you and John Martin and Lisa Griebel had done on the council. You were on the council when the sidewalk grant that Ocean Shores secured was returned.
Yeah.
How can voters trust that you will be able to effectively collaborate and deliver on your promises to address the needs of sidewalks given the past history of that?
That's a good question, and I think I've got Scott here to validate it, actually.
Can you repeat?
Throw something at me if I'm lying, okay?
Can you repeat the question?
I've got the question.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's
She didn't get it.
No, would you repeat the question so we can hear it out here?
She wants to know about the sidewalks and about what side that I would work on to try to help it happen or not happen, whichever.
Not what side, just we already had a grant, it was returned, we
Right.
were on the council before, so
Right.
what would you do differently now and how would you secure the funds?
Now, what we did is I was a liaison to the Chamber of Commerce at that point in time, and that was when we presented when the 5 sketches came out about 5 different types of sidewalks that we could have. And we had a demonstration on the open house, or you could see it down at the convention center, people come in and vote for whatever they wanted, you know, what they thought was good. And I noticed, and not Scott, but Jeff Daniels was the head of the Chamber of Commerce at that point. And he, I told him in a meeting with Eric Noble there that, in front of the chamber, that I don't see anybody here from the chamber coming to the meetings at the city and advocating for sidewalks. It's gonna benefit you guys, your businesses, but you're not doing it. And so then Jeff, called a meeting, and we had it at the home court in the back room. Invited all the people in town, all the businesses in town. And we learned that over 40% of those businesses were owned by people, absentee owners. All right? And none of them were interested in sidewalks, because they knew their taxes would go up. They felt their taxes would go up. The people that were in there, and the renters, they were not really having any idea of either, because they knew their rent would go up. And then there were a few people downtown that we don't want to change it, we like Ocean Shores the way it is. So, we went back and we didn't get to vote for it. I remember the day when we had to return the money, that we sat in the mayor's office and we tried to work out, I think you heard that. We tried to work out a way with Steve Ensley and John and the mayor and I, and tried to work out a way where we could send the money back and then take what we had and build the sidewalks incrementally. And do just a straight shot on each side. And that way we would avoid some of the costs that we would incur. One thing, if we did that, as we went into that deal to start with, PUD had contacted us and said that they would take down the telephone poles for free. And when that happened, then you could do the sewer system the way that it needed to happen. There's vaults that have to go in there. And so that would have been a huge thing. We would have we would have jumped on that. They took that away. All right, so then we decided, well, let's see what we can do. PUD said, no, they're not gonna do that. We thought that for about $1 million at that point, a man that we could do the sidewalk, a straight shot sidewalk, and put it down. And so it didn't happen. It just didn't happen. I voted for it. I was advocating for sidewalks all the way. I wanted one. Actually, let's still take crap about this from people I know that are on the council now and in the past. I want meandering sidewalks. And I thought the reason why we needed meandering sidewalks was to put 10-foot sidewalks out there, so in front of some of our businesses like our artist places and our cafes, they could, when it's nice outside, they could put their tables outside. Or they could put their wares outside. Sort of like what happened during COVID, but we wouldn't have put tents over it. But we needed a nice wide sidewalk to do that, and people didn't want to pay for it, bottom line, especially when grant went away. So, that answer?
Can I kind of follow up?
Sure, go ahead.
Is that right? So you said nobody wanted it, but yet we just had a huge walking and biking thing done by the planning commission. I moved here, I heard people wanting the sidewalks and everything, so I guess once again, what would you do differently and where would the money come from?
Well, it's just different times, and people have been talking about sidewalks for the last 2, 3, 4 years now, because, you know, when they see what's going on there downtown. I think since COVID kind of changed people's minds a little bit. What I would do is I would do the same thing I did before. I would advocate for it. I would support designs for it. I would go lay cement. I mean, I would do it all. I like the idea of sidewalks. I think it's the way we bring this city forward. I also think, and this occurred to Bob and I, we were sitting at the hot space. We're sitting on the back of Doug's truck, and it was on like a Friday or Saturday. And we saw the people walking along at the, like where the old grocery was, those businesses over there, and the bike shop. And that's where people walk when they come to town. Tourists walk because there are stuff. They don't turn the corner now. The first thing I did when we started talking about sidewalks, I made John and I think Lisa was with us too. Made them go down to on Friday night, meet at McDonald's and walk down to the end to the gates and back and see just what kind of trip it is. For people who are ambulatory. For people not ambulatory, it's virtually impossible. So until we make it ADA accessible for people, those businesses are not going to get into business. No, we're not as people drive to someplace in town unless it's trash. That answer? Kind of?
Partially.
Okay, all right.
Next question.
So you have a lot of history with the library, you have a lot of history with the school. How well does this library fill the gap that the school doesn't have a library? The essence is, how are the kids, in your opinion or your experience, how are they using this library to fill the gap that the school does not have a library?
I don't know if they're filling the gap because they don't have access to it. All right. They do have access to computers, which helps a great deal. But we also have a program. There's the library program where they come into the school, the North Beach High School, and they have a section show comes in, and usually somebody else goes there, and they can get books for kids. They have several books kind of highlighted, and if kids want to get a copy of it, check them out, and then next week. So it's an outreach program. It's not as hardy as I think we want it to be, but it's better than nothing. We could open up a branch there. That might be an idea. But I don't think there's room there. And I think that's a lot of red tape. Not impossible, but it could happen. That answer?
I think so, yes. So
In the elementary school, they have nothing for that, other than they're waiting right now. They won't, if you've been in that, the Ocean Shores Elementary, they have stats books, traditional. They actually will do those out and do the same thing with babies or seniors. So, and then there are libraries that have gone straight years too. So, I don't know, we're in a funny year.
thank you.
Another question.
I'm fairly new in the community, so I don't know the back history of most of what's happening in the city council. You've spoken a lot about your involvement with the library and a little bit about the sidewalks. Could you tell us what else you've accomplished and what your plans would be if you were reelected?
I went through my list of what I've done. Did you hear from that?
I was, and most of it was about the library.
Okay. Okay. I'll just go through what I think is the most impactful. All right. Most impactful things that I've been involved in have been the rewriting of the ethics and rewriting of the minutes are the how the meetings supposed. And then the financial guidance, which is huge. And then I created a thing called Family Summer, which was a summer program for kids that we held down in Ocean Shores every year, and we were able to write grants and get money from strange places. And we were able to provide kids with things to do in the summer. Because you notice here, kids aren't outside playing. This is not happening here. It's not happening everywhere, actually. And so we took kids to Lake Island, took kids to Rainier's game, they never been to a baseball game before. We took kids to glass blowing factory. We took kids, they had probably 2,000 on that. And we would laugh at the kids come in and be here because they had to go to the bus. And we did one of the best things we ever did was just a simple thing, visiting the CIC and spending the afternoon down on the beach on Damon Point and having them just build things. And it was amazing. They used everything involved in STEM that afternoon. And we got back our quiz. Which you guys do there? That was related to what we've been trying to teach you. And they figured it out. And interestingly, we had really three major groups that were doing things. Two boys and one group of girls. The girls came out on top. They kept stealing all the good stuff. As always. I mean, I've been here all the time. I know how that works. So, I've also been the pro-tem twice, which is the president of the council, and unfortunately had to chair citizen complaints towards the council, and then every time there's a public comment that is handed in, somebody has to contact. They can ask at the bottom, which please have somebody to contact. And so as pro-tem, part of my job is to divvy that up, and the mayor would make outreach to those folks. And trying to talk to them about their problems, what we need to work out, or give them some coaching, so to speak. It's kind of my main.
Just a follow-up question. The programs you did with the children, was that a program through the city council, or was that a program through the schools and the library?
It was funded through the city council. And they gave me a budget. And then engaged Grace Harbor Youth Foundation or something with a grant. And then we got a grant from the state from the wrote a grant to it was a recreation grant. And we got money from there. And so we just like the city does now. When we're doing things, writing grants and helping out. That's what James was talking about earlier on. Had that grant, and we had grants. But that's how we did it. The seed money was from the city, and it hits that to the council, and the council had to vote on. So it had to be you know, put into a form that.
Another question? Jean?
Is
campfire being compatible with Ocean Shores
residential communities
today?
With
Residential.
okay.
Okay.
I would say it depends upon are the campfires that you're speaking of are those residences doing campfires, all those RVers coming in, or both? Both. Okay. Well, I think that we have a campfire that we don't use, so we got a solo stove, which is fire. So I think more and more as we move on to things that are less invasive, we shouldn't be doing. People should have enough sense not to bother with anything what we all want to do. So I think the one thing my wife and I were talking about last night, so I knew this question was going to come up. How do we enforce it? Like, for instance, on the weekends, this is mostly happening. Code enforcement really doesn't work at night. Doesn't seem like to me. So if you call code enforcement, what's going to happen? The campfire's going to go on. You're going to have to go over and talk to people. All sorts of scenarios. It seems like we already call the fire department, but the fire department is busy too. So we could either outlaw them, but a lot of people like their campfires. And maybe we need to legislate what those campfires should look like. Those of you remember Bothke, who was the fire chief here for a while? Anybody remember him? Okay. He talked about campfires that they need X amount of feet away from houses. Or outbuildings or whatever. And that created a big crazy, furor from people. I don't think that ever got fixed, so to speak, because people still have their campfires right up next to their RVs sometimes. So I think there are places for campfires, but I think that always everything is about self-regulation. When you go out and drive down the street, when you go home, are you speed limit 35? You're going to go 40, 45? Are you going to have a campfire tonight? Or are you going to let it burn smoke in people's houses next to you? If we're good citizens, we control ourselves. So that's kind of a dancing around that question, isn't it?
I had a question up here first.
Yeah.
Hi, with the failure of the ballot box, what ideas do you have about our police station?
With the failing of the ballot box?
Yeah, the levy failed. And for the police station?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought the box failed. That's what it was. Go ahead.
So where do we go from here?
Well, I think it was first of all, I think in the failure of it was grossly misstated how much it was going to cost. People took a dollar figure that was made up and just ran with it. I think it got out at about $20 million, didn't it, at some point? Yeah, and it wasn't going to be that. It was originally slated for like 8 or something, and they were going to pay the money back. That was anything that came back was going to go into paying down the note. So we got some radical people got involved in it and just morphed it all over Facebook, and that's why it failed. And we need a police station. There's no doubt about it. And I would like to see it. I would vote for it, and I voted for it before. I would like to see it go right back on the ballot, but figure out a way to do it. Maybe get more grants or whatever. But just keep after. You can't quit after one time. It's for the city's sake. It's for you guys' sake. It's just like the fire department is for you guys' sake. My sake, your sake. I just happen to be the one. If I'm elected, I get to be your voice, one of the 7 voices. And so it's my responsibility to look at the facts and the figures and does this make sense or not? And it made sense to me. Actually, I'm the one that recommended that we put it over there across from the Polynesian, because that would have been the cheapest, because we own that property. Another great place I felt would have been between the IGA and the post office, but they weren't willing to part with that. So, it'll happen someday. It has to happen, because we're growing. Unless we don't get sidewalks, and we let our infrastructure go to hell, and we become less of a city, then people won't move here. People won't stay here.
Got a question over here?
Oh, I just had a quick question when you were talking about campfires and such. The city council, is it the responsibility of the city council to educate the folks of Ocean Shores about city ordinances? Or is it up to each individual agency, fire department?
I would think the fire department would be the one.
Well, that would be for campfires, but for
Yeah.
anything. It could be safety, it could be campfires, it could be junk at somebody's house next
Right.
door to me.
Yeah.
Garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it depends. I guess it depends upon who you call.
Ordinances, I'm sure, that address each of those.
Yeah.
But is it our responsibility to look up those ordinances, or can the city council help educate the population of Ocean Shores through the Ocean Observer or something that's already printed out there that we can learn, we can educate ourselves?
Okay. Good question. As a citizen of Ocean Shores, me, if there's something that I see that's bothering me that might fall under the idea of I don't think this is right, I can either call code enforcement, and that's up to me, or let it go. Or I'm savvy enough to go into the ordinances and look and see if there's something there that, if I get my answer there. And that's probably what I would do anyway before I called code enforcement. I would cite that to them, so it would give them more something to go on.
Okay, so it's the responsibility of the citizen.
Everybody has a
to know the
responsibility for that
ordinances
stuff,
of the
yeah.
city.
Yeah. Or you can ask anybody, ask anybody
I
in
would
this.
think education might be a component of the city council. No? I'm just saying.
It's a good thought.
We don't have an outreach of like that at all. But we do have all those ordinances, and everything about the city is on the city website. You know that?
Oh, I'm sure they are.
I mean, they are, everything is
Yeah.
right there,
Right.
and it'll lay it out for you.
Okay.
But like I said, a lot of people don't look at that or don't even know about it.
Right. Okay.
And we have been really crippled in the last few years with the loss of our newspaper. The newspaper used to be the place you'd be able to go and get everything,
Right.
but it's not here anymore. So it's everybody's.
Okay.
Lisa?
Hey Bob, I appreciated that you started today with kind of preempting a question I think a lot of us had, which is why you left the council. But could you clarify what's different now? If you left before, what has changed and what's different that you feel that you're ready to tackle the role again?
Two things. My wife's mobility is much better, and I'm no longer working as a school psychologist. I'm working a couple days a week right now to get 3 cases done, but that'll be done by late October. And I didn't intend to come back now, this year. So I had cleared the plate all last year basically too. So I have more free time, and when I have to be there, I have to be there.
Mr. Peterson, when you left council, you
Uh-huh.
left with an outstanding ethics charge. How will you address that if you're reelected?
I would address that as you're not accurate in your information.
No, I'm not.
No.
Hmm?
I didn't.
Really?
I didn't, you're not.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay, I have another question. Has nothing to do with that. Okay, go for it, because that went on, we'll talk later. Okay, Mr. Pearson, 2 years ago, you, Mr. Martin, and Mr. Eldwin came to our neighborhood, and I know you know what I'm talking about. You came to our neighborhood discussing the homelessness. They were trying to make a homeless camp in one of my properties, and you attended a meeting.
We had a follow-up meeting scheduled for, I believe it was 2 weeks later. I think it was, it could have been, and it doesn't matter. Mr. Martin had other obligations and could not attend. You, sir, made it a political event and refused to come support your whole, and don't, you and I started having this conversation on Facebook the other day.
Oh, I don't care where you have it. We've talked about it on Facebook. You and I have talked about it, and this is one of those gotcha questions.
Wait a minute, sir.
Let's just get to the question,
I was
please.
just
Yeah.
getting it, because there's a whole thing to it. I wanna know how, I have your emails
Okay,
right
fine.
on my phone right here, so don't go bantering
Okay,
with me.
let's just get to the question,
How can
please.
the community know that you're gonna work for all of the community and not your side? And those are your words. Those are your words. So how can we be confident? Now that just ticked me off, you just doing what you just did.
Okay, so you
Mhm.
asked your question. Let's answer the question.
How do we know you're gonna work for all of us and not just have your, because they're not your side? Now that's an email.
You know, I don't know how to even ask that question, answer that question.
Try.
I came to your meeting. Dennis Rudolph called me to come down to
He's
Edgewood.
sitting here.
Dennis,
He's a good friend of mine. so-
I understand that. You're not letting me answer.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I was called, Dennis Rudolph asked me to come down to Edgewood to help with a problem that he had next to his house.
That was my property.
Was it?
Yes, sir.
You own it?
Yes, sir.
Are you from Shorewood? Shoreline? Shoreline?
You're talking the vacant lot between the.
No, I'm not talking the vacant lot.
Well, that's for the.
No,
that's
the problem, the meeting was held, I was asked to come down to see about the people that were in the trailer, that were having people drug,
That is correct, and I'm the vacant lot that is right next door where they were trying to make an encampment. It was
on the other side.
between Dennis's house and the drug house.
I was brought down to look at asked to come down to look at the trailer, the part,
Right.
the
We're trying to
drugs.
get a hold of the owner.
Will you let me answer? Please. Okay. We had this on Facebook the other day, and I told you exactly what happened then. John and I came down, Frank was there too. We met, I actually brought down pads and pens for the various people that were in the room. It was obvious that people had not really talked to one another, and they were upset with the drug dealing that was going on out of that trailer. And it was happening at all hours of the night. People were screaming up and down the streets. And I had actually talked to the police chief before I went down. What can I do to help this situation other than go to police it myself? And she said, what you can do is you can have the people write down the times and the dates and when they are there.
Correct.
And
Go ahead.
it's okay to go ahead now?
That's what you want.
Okay, all right.
That's-
So we did that, and we also got a light put up in front of Dennis's house.
No, you did not. No, you did not.
Yes, we did.
You did not.
Okay,
And that's,
this is not to be confrontational, this is to ask the question and let him answer it.
so
And
he
if
can,
you
he
wanna
can
do,
be snarky and respond however he wants.
if you wanna do one-on-one discussion with him
I tried.
after, you
The
can.
public deserves to hear it. You don't understand.
No, I want to answer the question. John Martin and I were walking back from Dennis's house down to where we parked our cars, about 30 yards down the street, and I said to John, this is a pretty dark street, and there were people there in their meeting that said they don't even like to walk down the street because it's so dark. And I said, wouldn't a light go right there? And John, and there's a big telephone pole there, and John says, well, the PUD will come put it up,
Correct.
and they will, he said, but somebody will have to pay for them on a monthly basis. So within, I think, 2 weeks, there was a light there. And Dennis agreed that he would pay for it, pay for the monthly basis.
Dennis was, well, Mr. Martin didn't have an exact price. Obviously, you can't just give an exact price. Mr. Elduin actually came in and he took over and got that light and got that taken care of. My question.
No,
You're
I'm not going to let you go
only
on
stating-
with false
You're only
premises.
stating partial facts here, sir. I have the emails. I have all of my backup. I would like answers. My
Okay.
question to you is this. Because of how that all ended and you dropped the ball, because you You said clear as day, Mr. Peterson, clear as day.
Mhm.
Your side seems to have this taken care of.
That's your side, not my side. Your side hasn't seen it taken care
And I
of.
asked you in the email, what does side mean? What does that even
It
mean?
was
I'm
your-
so new to the area, I'd only lived here a year, and you said it had to do with you and Mr. Canary, Mrs. Canary.
No, it had to do
It-
with,
it's right here in the email.
let me answer the question. I don't care what you got on the email.
It's yours.
I don't care. I'm telling you what happened, and you can ask Randy
All
Peck.
right, that's fine.
Randy Peck called me and said, I understand you guys are gonna hold a meeting such and such. And he said, I'm the block watch captain here, it's my problem.
We don't have a block watch.
Yes, you do, Randy
No,
Peck is a
It's
head.
not for our area.
Yes, you do. Randy Peck is part of it. He called, that's what he told me.
It was for a different street, it had nothing to do with Edgewood Park.
Can we get on next question?
Okay, let's
We
go
can
on
talk
to the
later.
next
Wow.
We can talk later.
Can we get on with the next question, just like that? So we can't trust that you'll work for all the people.
My
in Ocean Shores.
question, I'm assuming this battle is done. My question is, would you tell the folks what you did for the folks on Rain Street?
Yeah.
Who had a problem, or have you already mentioned?
No, we haven't covered that.
And will you tell what the conclusion to that was?
Okay. We did the same, we got a call, well, it was brought to, there was a problem over on Main Street with a drug house and people coming in and out all night long, and it was coming to the council about every week with a couple that lived right next to them. So we were, Lisa and I went down to see it and talk to the people that live next to this trailer. And they showed us, they took us into their home and showed us they was above this trailer, and they showed us what was going on. And it had it didn't have water, it didn't have electricity. And it had a lot of furniture in front of it, just laying out by the street. And so we went over and Lisa and I talked to him and asked the guy, he was very nice. His place was pretty bad shape on the inside. And we asked him, what if all this furniture out front, whose is it? Is it yours? What is it? He said, no, people just keep piling it there. And I said, so what if you came home on Monday or Tuesday and it wasn't there? He said, that would be a blessing. And I said, so we'll look for a blessing by midweek. So Doug, Lisa, my wife, and I went down and cleared all of it away, took 2 truckloads to the dump in, I guess it was in Elma then, I don't know where, it was the old dump. Took it there and then came back and talked to him about what's going on with his life, how did he get in this situation. And upshot is that he had run out of hope. And he said he felt like a ghost, that nobody saw him. And we tried to offer a way out of it, and so we contacted another lady who's a social worker that lives down there, and we were able to arrange a place for him to go, to get rehab, and that he could live and then move on with his life. So Doug and I picked him up one morning and took him to Mount Vernon. Took him to a rehab center there, free of charge. It's free of charge when he got there. It didn't cost anything to get there. And we got him checked in, and he stayed, and he was staying in the house that for the men up there, and it's right in the heart of Mount Vernon. They've got kind of a perfect setting for rehab of any kind of problem there. It's right in the middle of town, and you can walk to all the services you need, or you're right on the bus route. So we said goodbye to him, got him checked in, and got a call from him a few months later. Oh, we also stored all of his stuff. Doug had it in his garage for months. Lisa went down to Ace and bought these big tubs, and we took everything in his house that was like clothing or knickknacks or whatever, and put them in these tubs and stored it until he was ready to have them. So he called us up and wanted his stuff, and Doug and I drove back to Mount Vernon, took his tubs up there, and he was working, had a job at a landscape company, had purchased a truck an old truck from his boss, and he was doing well. And so, yeah, we saved his life is what we did. And he came back and wanted to thank us one day, and he met us down at the home port for coffee. He was back in town. He had to come back for court. And I went over and talked to, after he was telling why he was in town for court, and we said, you just don't need to be here. I mean, this is a wrong place for you to be. I went over and talked to Scott Sage, who was our judge, and said, what is he facing? And he said, this is like $500 worth of fines. And he didn't have any money, and he was going to jail. And he, after he'd done all this good stuff, right? So I just paid him $500. Doug paid half, I paid the other half. And we just said, get out of town. Go back to your job. And get yourself together. So he's good. It's all good. But we took criticism from people in the community because we were doing something. That it wasn't the council's job to, quote, do anything. And I'm not sure what that all meant. Except we did it, and we just didn't listen to it and got the job done. So, and that was the blueprint for what we did over in Edgewood. That was what we did, that was our blueprint. Matter of fact, I met with an open night, the National Open Night House.
National Night.
Yeah, whatever it was, yeah. Anyway, I went over to Edgewood and saw Dennis, and he said things were going well over there. And I had been down that street several times since the times I had been there, and things had changed. For the better. And we gave a little talk to the people on Main Street. They were facing the same thing, drug trafficking and that sort of thing. And said, be glad to come back and talk to you. Give you a blueprint, because it can work. Because it did work on Edgewood. So, that's the answer to that question.
Okay. I have another question along that same line. What you did in your actions is very commendable as a good neighbor. That was great, thank you. But as a city council person, how will you address the homelessness of Ocean Shores and the drug activity and I understand there's indigent people. I get it, we're all a paycheck away from being homeless. But at the point that they are destroying property and stealing and thieving and drugging and leaving their needles on the beach, how does the city address that?
Well, okay, good question, fair question. That has been beat around for a while.
I'm sure.
And we've actually talked about, Ocean Shores doesn't have the services. We don't have the existing services to work with homeless people, to work with drug addicts. We don't have it. The closest place that has things now getting into place is Aberdeen.
Right.
And they've got a great system going. I just read just before I came down here, that the state was awarded $64 million to fight against the fentanyl problems. So that's some of that's going to trickle down, probably going to trickle down to them because they've got places that can use it.
So what do we do here? This is our city and it's declining because of this problem. How do we address that? How do you address it at the city level?
Encourage, well, one of the things we've been trying to do is increase medical here. I think that I have been able to do a part in that and getting that school-based health center here, because one of the problems, two of the problems I dealt with last year were fentanyl-related problems. And we're able to get kids into rehab, but again, away from here, not here. So, as a person, I feel like I have done what I can, but as a community, yeah, we're all stronger. But we've got to get people really to come and start demanding those kind of services. You know, come to the council. instead of talking about, I don't know, little problems, come with some big problems, community type problems. We spend a lot of time on problems that we go over and over and over with that come from the community. We don't have people that come in mass that ask for assistance like this. You know, we have a police department, obviously, that can kind of control the situation, but where are they going to take them?
Right, we don't.
We don't have they can take them to the hospital, okay? They can run them to the emergency room, but they're going to release them. Yeah, it's a problem, you know that. And
I know
I'm
it
not
is,
telling you
and so
anything.
that's why I'm wondering how, on a city council level, not as a neighbor,
Mhm.
but as a city councilman, how do you address that?
Well, I guess we can, I would have to know where we're at, where the city is with our grant writer. Whether we have that, anything like that in the book. I'll go in the books right now. Do we have a grant? These grants come along every so often, and you've got to kind of grab it when it comes.
Okay.
You can't just say, I'm going to write a grant for this and put your money all there, because it might not come up for another year, year and a half, which is what the sidewalk thing was.
Right.
You know, it came along and we had to hit a time period.
Okay.
And then it might not come along for another time period, if you want help with it.
And once you return money from a grant,
Uh-huh.
can you reapply later on for that?
You can reapply, but what I understand is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, is once you apply for a grant and send it back, it's harder to get it the second time, is that correct?
No, it depends. Let's just say that that's the legal answer.
Okay, great. Great.
Type of grant, it depends. Some grants offer the possibility of what's called like improvement, like, you know, they'll actually give you, if you had done this and addressed this better, you're more likely to get it the second time. So they give you hints that help improve your score. Other grants, you're right, there's no, you know, but if you've taken the money, like with sidewalks or something like that, or you've taken money and then you give it back, that's never like a good look at the funding agency.
Scott, would you tell the audience who you are? Because there's a lot of people here who don't know who you are.
I hope there's no need. Well, I think most of the people I know my name here, but I'm Scott Anderson, City Administrator, and I'm technically not a part of this debate, but if I can be asked, I'll answer.
No, it's good that you give it back.
Yeah.
All right, we got a lady back here who's just been waving that.
Okay.
She has patiently been waiting for you.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's her job.
We have job descriptions.
Does the city of Ocean Shores have an ordinance against camping on our public areas, homeless camping? And if not, would you support an ordinance of that type? Some cities have passed that. Up in Everett, you're not going to camp. You have three choices. You camp, a homeless camper, you move on, you go to rehab, or you go to jail. That's it. And I was wondering if the city here would be willing to support an ordinance of that sort, or do they have one already?
We have ordinances, you can't do that. But, okay, when you talk about Everett, you know, you move on, or you go to jail, right? Is that what you said? Okay.
Or go to rehab.
Oh, to rehab, okay. Well, we're not gonna send anybody to rehab. We can't afford that. We don't even really send people to jail, they have to go to Montesano. And then they're away there for X amount of hours or days, and it takes people off the streets. We were hoping to be able to alleviate some of that, or mitigate some of that with a new police station, to be able to hold people longer and that kind of thing like that. But it's all, it all costs money.
In other words, no.
Not a no, it's just that we don't have it in place right now, obviously. We've got the ordinances, but we don't have the teeth. We don't have the
Can't you work
teeth.
with the county? Can't you work with some of the other nonprofit organizations to do something about these people, other than just say, no, we can't do anything?
I'm sure she could. Do you know, Scott, if?
I'm really not.
Okay, I'm just asking about Sarah. Does Sarah do anything with the grants? He's not gonna answer, okay. So, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Bob's over here waving.
Bob?
I read recently that Japan has over 500 tsunami towers. We have 0. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are there was a big mistake made when the school district did not go in with the city on creating a tsunami tower at the elementary school. That was, we had OSPI saying, here, take this money. I think it was $8 million, take it. The city had their part of it ready to go, but the district said no. So I know that the district now has been working on a way to create one, and they're going to put it on the campus. It's going to be on the campus of Ocean Shores Elementary if it ever gets through. Okay, but that's going to cost you. That'll cost you too. With the previous one that was turned down by the
School board.
school board, yeah, they it wasn't going to cost you anything. It was done. The money had been spent. The money was coming in. All it had to do was pass through, and our district was going. The district was going to pass it through without charging anything. It would have been about an hour and a half worth of work every month by our public finance person down there. I talked to her about it, and taxes wouldn't have gone higher. Everybody across the state would pay for that, has already paid for it, okay? If we have one now that the school board puts up, decides that, unless they get a full grant, that's gonna fall to, it has to fall to a levy or something along those lines for you to pay for me to pay my part, for you to pay your part.
Okay. Oh, thank
Yeah.
you. Some people say that we're encouraging businesses to come in, and some people say that's not up to the city to be encouraging businesses, but we do have the ocean pours, and everyone's aware of it. And there's been comments pro and against. There's been stories told about them, and they may not have been in compliance with one item. They may be willing to come into compliance, but they are not a tent. They are a structured engineer structure, and they can withstand a high wind of 125, 35 miles per hour wind, which some of our structures here probably can't with the old roofing on. They also have the parking available. They have the bathroom facilities. They don't cause a lot of problems at all. And evidently the city, for some reason, has felt that it's not necessary to continue with them and with the income that's coming in, and that they will lose their license here very soon and have to remove everything. So what is your opinion on trying to work? I have a feeling that the city has neglected to look at a few other businesses in town, or overlooked an item that may have needed some help, or given them an extended time. Can you work with Ocean Forest? Is the city willing to? Would you be willing to?
Well, I could say this, because Ocean Pours had always been a temporary structure, and it wasn't. I don't think it had anything to do with the tent. The tent's fine. The tent would be here.
It's not a tent, though. It is an engineered structure.
Whatever I wanted to call it a pavilion, which I kind of think it is, but that tent will stand there long before a lot of these houses around here will. And the issue, as I recall, was safety. And it had to do with some wiring, and it had to do with some flame they have in the middle of the place to keep it warm.
That's all been taken care of.
Well, they haven't taken away the COVID variants yet. Remember that they were allowed to stay open, like all our businesses in town here, under the emergency COVID. So once that's removed, then I assume that they can request an inspection again, and if they pass it, they pass it. If they don't, they don't.
But they've already been denied the license to be renewed. And I'm wondering how you might be able to help them as a council person to, they want to stay as a permanent business. And
Well,
they're willing to work with the city.
I would think if they're up to code, if they brought the things up to code that they needed to, and there were safety issues, then there should be no reason why they're not given the permanent affiliation, so to speak. There's no reason. If they haven't come up to code, and it's a safety issue, then I couldn't vote for it simply because if I go in there, you guys go in there and it burns down. If it is an issue with an electrical system or the power in there or whatever, and it burns down, the city's on, we're all on the hook for the lawsuit then. So I'm not exactly sure, because I've been away from it for a long time. But if they brought it up to code, I'm just saying your reason.
Well, you did partially answer my question, so I do want to ask one point to that again. But you said, I wanted to touch on something else. You said we had ordinances for homeless camping, but yet when they were camping over here on the Grand Canal, and I talked to the police, they said they could do absolutely nothing about it. So
I don't know what
So-
I can't speak to their response.
well, if we had ordinances, they would have been able to do something about it. So we
Or-
either don't have ordinances or the police department didn't.
That's something I can check on.
Okay, thank you.
But-
The part of my question you didn't finish is because, once again, because we're talking about it, giving those grants back. Sidewalk grant was given back.
Yeah.
Well, you, Lisa, John were on there.
And Steve Ensley, our finance
And
director.
Steve Hensley.
Yeah,
It was given back,
yeah.
and all the talk about sidewalks and everything, if that was given back when you were on there before, how would you pay for the sidewalks now that everybody's screaming and hollering for?
Well, we've gone for grants again, obviously, and we could probably pay more of the match this time. You have to make it so the citizens can pay for it, or will vote for it. And that's going to be the vote, people vote with their pocketbook.
And that's where it concerns me, since we had a grant return before, now it would be up to the citizens.
Well, his answer was kind of like, well, I don't want to give any answers. Yeah, obviously, we would go backwards. And maybe we would be a little stronger this time. Maybe we'd have a little more support from the community. Maybe we wouldn't, maybe the designs wouldn't be so costly. But I think that's probably it. A pie in the sky wish there. Since the poles would still have to come down. And the sewers would have to go in, and the bulbs would have to come in. I'm all for it. You know, whatever I could do to help with it, I would.
I just, the grant thing is
Yeah.
the whole thing that's about, so
Okay.
thank you.
So most of the questions that you have been fielding today have been about what can you do for the city? I think it's only fair to ask, what can the citizens do to help the council people do the job that they need to do? It's a tough job. You're doing it out of the goodness of your heart, really. How can we help you not get bogged down by all the negatives?
Stop the negatives. No,
That's true.
It is, well, at the very end, that's true. There's a division in town, there's a division in the state, there's a division in the country. We all know that. I think sitting down and talking to people will help. The two sides, I think where the division comes, a lot of anger comes to the council is through the constant barrage to our administration downtown for the public records requests, the time and the money it takes to, answer all that. I think the social media with the way people challenge other people, the way they accuse other people of things, or another sect of the community. I think that if we could develop constructive dialogue, that goes a long way. And see, it's all sort of foreign to me in a way, because I've worked for now 50 years as a school psychologist. And my job as a school psychologist is basically to evaluate situations, come back to a team, and have that team of diverse people come to a collaborative tract or what recommendation or what are we going to do to resolve this situation. But we have, so it's a pyramid, guys, and at the top are kids or situations, okay? Here, the top of the pyramid's the same. It's a city, though, and we all think differently. And we don't really have parties. We're supposed to be nonpartisan. Although I've been labeled Democrat, Republican, and a couple other things I can't say. But we need to get away from that. We need to always think about what's best for Ocean Shores. And one of the things that I think people are thinking that Jane's been talking about are sidewalks and renewing our downtown, making it more attractive, because you never know who comes through there, who might want to put a business there. So somehow working together. And I think a classic is the angst that there was about the tower, the tsunami tower. That was amazing. You know, because the school board is the same. It's the same thing as this city council. You know, they're going through the same thing. We have had a non-functional school board for a while now, so the kids, I don't know if anybody has kids in here, or grandkids or whatever that go to school here, but your kids are suffering from it. And they're suffering not just from the disagreements among people, but now they're suffering financially. There's been at least two, I'll call them lawsuits that were settled for over $30,000 each by people in town. And then there's another one pending that may be more significant than that even. So that's money being taken away from the individual kids in town. So is that okay? No, it's not okay. I mean, just get along, I guess, you know, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. But it would be great if we could keep things civil like it. And we have done there has been a pretty good job the last couple times the city council, I will say that. It's been pretty good. But before that, just the open warfare. It doesn't do anything. I always thought that, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to ask about, I've been at different events, and there's been conversations about town halls. And that might be a way for the citizens to have more interaction with the council members in a friendly environment. Do you think that is something going forward? I know you do the monthly city chat. Some of the comments have been, we don't really get to talk to the city council or have a back and forth conversation. Is that something to consider going forward, of maybe changing the format of city chats, or doing some neighborhood town halls? We did them a few years ago, and there was a good response.
Well, the town halls that have been run by various people to come talk about a various subject with a lot of people, okay? The chats have been more or less the mayor and the administration coming out and having a subject, and they talk about it. What we used to have before this last election was we used to have council chats. And the council chats I felt were really good.
So are you willing to go forward and do that?
Oh, yeah.
That's my question,
Yeah,
Bob.
yeah.
Very simple.
You know, I would love to, we'd have 3 council members there, and we would just say, what's the question? And people would just start talking, and what the difference was we allowed people to crosstalk. You know, so we could just, it's like I could go in there and throw a question out, and it could be talked about for an hour and a half by just the people, and a lot of the resolutions, and that was, when I'm talking about the public discourse, that's respectful. I felt
So you
that.
support that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Lisa, you were part of that, weren't you? Yeah. Didn't you feel those were good? Yeah. Yes.
Okay, we're going to call this the last question because I want to have time for Bob to be able to answer questions one-on-one, because there's a lot of people here who didn't ask questions, but I can see light bulbs going off that they have questions. So this will be the last question, and then we'll wrap up.
Official question.
official question.
Oh, official. No more questions. How do you feel about 4th of July and fireworks in Ocean Shores?
How do I feel about it?
Yes.
I would stop them.
What?
I see. Half you were going away. How many would stop them? All right, everybody look around, go ahead, raise your hands again. All the stoppers, raise your hand. Okay, put your hands up. All the people that want them, raise their hand. That's about a draw, isn't it?
And I have a house right on the beach, and I've had a fire out in the dunes. I've seen that fire when I first bought my house, and it's amazing. But they're beautiful. They're having fun. If they stay 100 feet away from the dunes, it brings revenue into the city, and you can't say that it doesn't. And it's a 3-day weekend. Come on. Who would have done once too?
There we go.
There you go.
So now, somebody take the other side of that question and answer it.
It's hard on the animals.
Yeah, well, that's why I like it. I've got 2 dogs and a cat.
Yon and CBD. No, not just.
So Bob, to add to that question,
Hang on. We got somebody volunteered to answer it right here.
to add to that question, and my memory may not be perfect. My memory of the 2013 fire report by our fire department, 1 acre of wax myrtle is equal to 155-gallon drums of gasoline, the heat potential. And heat potential of 1 acre of wax myrtle is equal to 155-gallon barrels of gasoline. Do we want a dune fire? Gee, that's a hard question.
We could vote on that one.
We could have a wingy roast.
We need the 50-foot abatement.
I will say that we had a book sale on the 4th of July. We brought in so many tourists. It was one of our biggest book sales we've ever had. And it helped fund the kids' programs at the library.
Have you ever considered calling a fire sale?
All right, well, Bob, we're going to give you about 5 minutes.
Thank you, guys.
Bob will stick around if you have questions, and then Lisa will be on the 3 o'clock.
Well done, Bob.